Hi guys, welcome to the Hoopsters League of Action Heroes, and this segment is called That Job Rocks. So the idea is to bring you these amazing, interesting alternate career options that you can probably look at once you get out of college, once you get out of school or whatever, something interesting for you to do with your life. And today I have this really, really interesting person with me. His name is Sudhen. Please tell me how to pronounce your surname.
Sudhen Wahengbam.
Sorry, come again.
Wahengbam.
Wahengbam. Okay, so this is Sudhen Wahengbam, who is one of Southeast Asia's most experienced esport commentators and analysts. So for a layperson like me, he does video game commentary, which is something I had never heard of until I met you. Right? So yes, Sudhen, all yours. Tell us a little bit about what you do, about yourself.
I think you hit the nail right on the head there, right? So I talk about video games. It's a very niche, it's a very new profession, like compared to more traditional roles. Obviously, like competitive video games as a whole hasn't been around for very long. It's been there from an amateur side of things. Like we used to have the games like Mario, right? Like Super Mario Brothers and Tetris and all these older games. And even back then, we used to have people compete to see who would have the quickest time to complete the game, for example, speed runs and stuff like that. Over time, it evolved. We had games like Mortal Kombat and some of these fighting games and whatnot. And in the 2000s, when it started becoming a thing, like esports, this phrase started being used for players or teams playing against each other in particular video games. And it turns out there was an audience, a like-minded bunch of nerds, kids. They wanted to watch other people play. And it kind of gave birth to the original term. It's called Winamp to Shoutcast. This is like even before my time. There were people who set the path, so to speak. They kind of laid the path for people like me to follow. So it is kind of niche, but to just dumb it down, we commentate over competitive video games, which is very similar to anyone commentating about sports, right? So you have cricket, football, tennis, you name it. Just replace a sport with a particular video game. There you have it, esports commentator. Very simple.
All right. So you're talking about tournaments and you're talking about people competing with each other. Mm-hmm. So take us through what an event looks like. What does it look like and what do you guys do? And do people come to one place and compete, or how does it work?
Well, I mean, the great thing about esports is that it can be played online, right? You can sit from your home and play it. Unfortunately, due to COVID right now, we don't really have any physical events taking place, even in sports and everything. But esports has survived surprisingly because you can play everything online. However, if you look at the biggest events we have in esports, you're talking about stadium filling events, prize pool heading in upwards of millions of dollars, a couple of events even cracking $30 million just for one tournament, right? That's a lot of money on the line, a lot of fanfare. To give you an example, some of the biggest events which take place have about 10 to 30 to 40,000 people coming into a stadium, flying in from all over the world just to watch your favorite teams play. And we have the teams flying down, sitting down in front of the audience. You have the commentators, you have all the glitz and glamour associated with it. And even though it is still a growing thing altogether, a growing concept altogether, I feel it is kind of finding its stride at the moment. It's really growing. Like this year, like if you go back to last year, COVID basically killed off any live sporting viewing for a lot of people. So we had betting companies, for example, who were kind of lost. They didn't know what to do because most of these sports which they supported, they could not offer bets and their business was struggling. People wanted to watch something. And many of them actually transitioned into esports because there are professional teams playing for a lot of money on the line. And there are a lot of these tournaments which actually have betting companies, they have viewers, they have sponsors. Some of them even were aired on TV. So it's basically like if you watch the English Premier League for football or IPL or whatever it is, it's pretty similar apart from, a few changes here and there.
And how big is this in India? Is it as big?
It is growing, right? So if you asked me this question a couple of years back, I would have said not so much. It's still very new. It's very nascent, primarily because esports as a whole. Firstly, it's like any other sport, right? You need the players, you need an audience, and you need these are the main two things. You need people who are interested in the game, and you need the audience, right? People who play and people who watch. In India, unfortunately, due to our economic situation, which has always been lagging behind a lot of other first world countries, like let's say South Korea or like the EU or North America, we didn't have as much proliferation of PCs, like personal computers or consoles and whatnot. Number one, that's a big problem. So we don't have that much of a playing base. Secondly, viewership-wise, our internet was never the best. Sure, if you live in a tier one city like in Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, whatever, you would have some pretty good internet connectivity. But the majority of the country, they don't really have that to watch teams play. And they don't watch it on TV, they watch it on YouTube, live streaming, or on Twitch.tv, two of the biggest streaming platforms out there. A couple of years back, there was something that happened, which was this particular game, PUBG Mobile, it really took off. That solved two problems. Firstly, almost everyone has a phone, right? You don't need a PC. And almost everyone has a phone, and almost every kid, not just kid, almost everyone out there were like, okay, this is really cool. And for a lot of these people, they were discovering competitive video games for the very first time, and they fell in love with it. So there was a massive explosion when it comes to the user base. And they also realized that there are other games out there. It's not just PUBG Mobile. There are other games out there which they can play or watch. Simultaneously, it was also coinciding with the rise of internet proliferation in the country. Like you have like Jio and Reliance, these guys, you have Airtel and everyone. And there was a big growth in the Indian mobile industry when it comes to data, data being way more freely available, meaning they can also watch as well. So that solves two problems were solved almost simultaneously. You have a player base now for a particular game, and you have people watching the game thanks to the internet. Now, with that taking place, there has been a massive upsurge in esports and people being interested in the esports market. Everyone knew that one day India was going to be one of the big markets, one of the biggest markets out there. It's just a question of when it was going to be taking place. So I think, 2018 is when, all these catalysts came into play and it kind of like worked out. At the same time, I still feel we're finding our way. We're getting to a point where other countries reached like 10 years back. So we're still making mistakes here and there when it comes to like learning pangs, right? We're growing pangs, so to speak. So growing pains, it will be a part and parcel of it. But I feel that initial explosion of interest, I think it has definitely taken place. At the same time, when it comes its pros and cons, which is something we're all dealing with right now.
Okay, so now that you're telling me that India is still a relatively new country to be entering this niche or this market, how do you have 7 years of experience? How did you get into this? This is so interesting.
I've always been a bit of a nerd, a bit of a computer geek, so to speak. So I've been playing video games since I was a child, right? I used to beg my parents to buy me these consoles back. I'm in my early 30s right now, and I think I started playing video games when I was like 5 or 6. I was fascinated. I'm like, God damn it, I love video games. And I started playing games like Counter-Strike, one of the biggest esports games out there, early 2000s, like I think it was 2001, 2002 when I started playing Counter-Strike. And I was in high school, then I joined college, and that's when I discovered that through friends I made through video games, that there is a competitive scene out there. It was still very, very small compared to what we have today, but there was still a scene. And I used to watch these games with my friend. We'd have decent internet connectivity. Luckily, I was doing my college in Bangalore, so internet was way more freely available than if I was in a smaller town or a smaller city. And yeah, I just watched it. I enjoyed it. I did my degree in engineering. I lived the rest of my life, just following a normal path until one day I said, you know what, screw it. Let's jump into esports and see where it takes me. I didn't go in full-fledged. Obviously, I did test the waters. I was still learning the ropes and figuring it out. But I think it was around circa 2013, 2014 when I got a new internet line, a high-speed internet line in my apartment in Bangalore. I also upgraded my PC a little bit, and I just dipped my toes and just try to see where it led me, and it turned out to be the right call for me.
With any other communication related job, say RJing or whatever, there is a path to it, right? I know where to apply. I know how to get started. Mm-hmm. So what was the path for you? How did you know that? Where did you apply? How did you get into it? I mean, how does that work?
Unlike more known jobs, more established jobs like being an RJ or let's say even a sports commentator, I think esports is way more still a wild west when it comes to kind of like making it your thing, especially when it comes to commentary, right? For me, I feel it was multiple factors going my way. Also, me jumping in when there was no one really doing it in Asia. So Asia as a whole, there's never been, because of Asia being a very special case where English, while almost everyone kind of speaks it to a certain degree, it's not the common language for the entire region, right? You have Southeast Asia, you have Asia, everyone has local dialects and whatnot. So there's no one really covering the Counter-Strike scene in Asia um, around that time, 2013, 2014. So I said, you know what, I'll do it, right? I reached out to a couple of these tournament organizers who were having tournaments. There were teams playing. There was no way you could watch these games because there was no one covering it, streaming it, or commentating on it. And I'm like, I'll do it for free. I'll do it in the evening instead of, coming back from my job and going to a pub and grabbing a pint or so with my friends. I came back home straight from work, took a shower, grabbed my dinner, and I just cast these games. And I really enjoyed it because I really liked the games. And eventually, I came in touch. A couple of companies came up to me and they're like, "Hey, can you commentate this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I could." And they're like, "How much?" I'm like, "Oh wait, I get money out of this. That's great. Like that's pretty awesome. I didn't expect to make any money out of it." And it wasn't much money. I won't lie, the first few gigs here and there, but it did make me ponder about maybe giving this a shot. Maybe if it works out, it does. If it doesn't, it's fine. I can still go back to my other, my other jobs, which I could probably pick up, knowing my based on my my degree, my experience, and all of that. But then, I reached out a lot to a lot of tournament organizers. So TOs are tournament organizers. They're the ones who make the tournaments, and they're the ones who hire commentators to commentate on these events, right? So I did reach out to a lot of them. Obviously, most of them were misses more than hits, but one or two guys reached out. They got back to me. They flew me down to like a couple of events. One of my first events was in Malaysia. The second one was in Taipei. So it was pretty cool for me. I'm like, wow, I'm flying all across the world to talk about video games, which is pretty damn cool while getting paid for it. But it was a slow start, right? So you try to do your best job possible. You try to keep reaching out, keep improving your craft. You have to be good at what you do because there are lots of other people who are really, really good as well. And you just put yourself out there. Eventually, people will notice you. People will get in touch with you. And then you kind of slowly build your career. It's a very loosey-goosey approach compared to, let's say, a more professional path, right? If you join an IT company or you want to be a doctor or something more traditional, there is a path already laid out which has been traversed by thousands, millions of people out there. This is more of a Wild West where you kind of have to find your own way. So if you ask almost any commentator out there right now who do this as a full-time job like I do, I think every one of us would have a very different story as to how we kind of got into it.
So how did you know that, okay, now I'm ready to, take this as a full-time career and I don't need to fall back on any other job? When did that realization happen?
I don't think there was any one moment when that happened. So just to give a little context, I did my engineering, in electronics, typical Indian engineering kid, as a lot of us are. I did work in like normal jobs. Then I got a little bored of my engineering, so I went into like certain event management companies and whatnot. I was doing sales and marketing, so I did manage to pick up a lot of different skill sets, which unfortunately they don't teach in colleges or school in India, which sucks, unfortunately. It was one time. There's a point in time where I was kind of I wouldn't say bored, but I felt complacent in my job where I was earning an okay amount of money. I wasn't really happy with what I was doing. It was just a daily 9 to 5 grind. And that was the time when I started like commentating just for fun. And I decided at one point that I might as well give this a shot. So I gave myself 2 months to make something of it. And if that wasn't going to happen, I fall back on something different, perhaps. Gave it a shot. There were a couple of companies in India. Back then, it was like 1 or 2 companies in India who were dealing with esports. And even then, they were like barely known at all, right? Now it's way more companies because of the explosion in esports popularity in the country. And one of them reached out to me and they're like, hey, we want you to work for us. It's going to be all the way up north in Gurgaon towards Delhi. Can you do it? I looked at the pay. The pay was actually lesser than what I was earning in my previous job. But I'm like, but I got to talk about video games. They're like, yeah. Packed my bags, went to Delhi for 6 months, and then another company reached out later on, and they were based out of Bangalore. They gave me a much more lucrative offer, and it was from Bangalore where I'm based out of. So I'm like, yeah, I'll take that. So I worked with them in different capacities. It was not just me commentating, it was heading their production side of things, like broadcasting, a lot of things, a lot of roles, which I learned on the fly, learned on the job, which is really good for me, like experience wise. And it was, I think, only it was like 4 to 5 years later where I was able to kind of go off on my own alone as a commentator, right? So it wasn't like one path where I just went from here to here. It was multiple steps which I had to take to help me sustain this dream, so to speak. So it was only like, I think, the like past 2 or 3 years when this became like my literal full-time thing.
Okay, so how does it work? Are you like an individual who gets called for gigs, or do you have like an agency or a company that represents you? How does this work?
There are agencies out there. I won't lie. I know a lot of my colleagues who do have agencies who take care of their gigs and whatnot. For me personally, I am solo when it comes to the esports side of things. I'm a freelancer, self-employed. I have over the years built up a decent network of contacts I have in place, who I can reach out to. But I do also have an agency who I signed up with very recently, who would be trying to help me reach out to different aspects of what I could do with my skill set. It could be consulting, like esports video game consulting. It could be maybe voice acting, maybe voiceover, stuff like that. Something I've always wanted to not pigeonhole myself into one thing. And as much as I love esports commentary, and it is the love of my life, at least for the time being, I'm not afraid, or I don't want to just hold myself back from other things. So I do have an agency, but from the esports side of things, it's primarily my work, or rather my contacts, that kind of gets me events.
All right. So when I was trying to learn about your profession because of this interview, I was trying to read up about what happens, and so I don't really look like I'm completely uninformed. But yeah, there were a lot of articles and a lot of blogs that said this guy makes millions just talking about video games, or playing video games all day, or 6 ways you can earn just playing video games. These are some things that are out there that are definitely influencing the younger generation. Okay. And we see cases of children defending themselves, saying that, no, I'm going to make a career in video games one day. I'm not saying no, but give us a reality of it, the harsh realities.
The harsh reality is, since this is going to be going out to a more of an Indian audience, no one's going to be Sachin, or not everyone's going to be the captain of the Indian cricket team. That's the unfortunate reality, right? I have my cousins who played cricket. They were really good at it. They never really got a shot at the national team or whatever. So they had to do other jobs while still being, really, really talented people. And just the way the world functions. People making $1 million from playing video games, do they exist? Absolutely. Are there Indians who make $1 million from playing video games? Do they exist? Yes, they do. They're probably less than 10 out of a billion plus population. So that's you have a better chance of buying a lottery ticket and making it work for you, or getting $1 million. And again, I'm not trying to kill anyone's dreams. I feel like the video game industry it's filled with potential. There's so many things you can do, right? If you asked me like a few years ago if esports commentary was going to be a thing, I would have just laughed in your face saying, no, it's not going to pan out, right? It just kind of worked out for me because I knew about it. But apart from that, like esports production, like it's equivalent to TV production. In certain cases, it's even more advanced in TV production. If you see some of the production from some of these events which I've been at or even worked at, it trumps some of the stuff I've seen on TV, like the normal sports production and whatnot. The production values are out of this world. They hire people who have worked in the Olympics, people who have worked in actual sports broadcasting, for example, right? We have it's an entire industry on its own. You might have an MBA. You could join an organization, a team like, let's say, Fnatic. So Fnatic is a team who I would equate to, let's say, Manchester United, or let's say something like closer home, like the Mumbai Indians for the IPL guys, right? So something similar to that. And they have their own business arm, they have their own marketing arm and whatnot. There's so many jobs where you need real life experience. You need an education. You need experience in more broader fields, right? If you want to work in these companies, you just can't walk in and say, hey, I play video games. I'm really good at playing this game, so hire me. And this guy's going to be like, no. Like, what do you know about marketing? What do you know about sales? What do you know about all these things? You don't know anything. You just know something about this game. And it's easier for me to explain the game to a professional than to teach you marketing just because you know video games, right? It doesn't work that way. So my thing would be, look, for all these kids who want to, they obviously look at their favorite streamers, their favorite teams, and they want to be one of them, right? They want to be famous. They want to show how good they are in the world. Go for it. Go for it. Absolutely. I don't think anyone should stop them. I don't think parents should stop them. I'm glad my parents didn't stop them. I'm glad my parents gave me the opportunity to explore all these interests of mine, and I did it, right? But be smart about it. Be healthy about it. Have contingency plans in place. This should not be something which affects your schooling, your college life and whatnot. I still believe getting a degree is still important. It is the backup plan. Get a degree close to what you like in video games, right? Maybe you might enjoy video game design, which is a whole different thing altogether. Making video games is a different thing altogether. Are you really interested in the esports side of things? Why don't you try and get hired by a company who handles these sort of things, right? Could be from a production standpoint, could be from different ways, so many options available. And if you want to pursue your dream of being this guy making millions of dollars a month, being a streamer, go for it as well, but not at the cost of you being burnt out or you not having an escape route if it doesn't pan out. Like, what if it doesn't pan out? You don't want to be 25, 26-year-old who's not even completed school, because there's no escape from that. You're going to be set back by years in your life, and it can get pretty miserable, right? So I feel it's a healthy balancing act between both the children and the parents. I would really advise parents not to just keep the kids back and lock away the phones and all these games or whatever because they think it's bad for them. No, it's the future. It is the future, and it relates to a lot of things out there. I met some of my best friends, and my entire affinity to technology and modern technology and esports and everything is based off the fact that I was interested in video games when I was growing up. It made me more interested into computers and everything else. So never ever hold your kids back from exploring what new stuff is just because you don't understand it, just because you're older. At the same time, for the kids, it has to be balanced. There has to be some level of balance somewhere.
Right. Now that this is a very interesting point, okay, because we actually have parents calling us and saying, my child is addicted to video games. He's playing for 8 hours a day. He's playing for 10 hours a day, especially with the lockdown in place. We've got a lot of parents calling us and saying that, there is no taking him out of this. And video game addiction, tech addiction is a thing today. It is a real thing. You actually have proper rehabilitation for this. Okay, have you come across any such instances, considering you're so close to this industry?
It's really hard for me. Look, for me, anything can be addictive, right? Like literally anything can be addictive. I spend about 14 hours in front of my computer. But that's because my work and my leisure is playing video games. Even now, after all these years, I still the way I chill out, the way I enjoy myself, the way I even talk to my friends is while playing video games, and also I work is on my PC. Am I addicted to it? I don't think so. Right? I do try to balance that. Now, there are extreme cases. I won't deny that there's always an extreme case, but they cannot be that can't be your poster child for, video games are evil or this is evil. Like, I remember reading this article a year back, I think a year and a half back, where 3 teenagers in a part of India, I forget where, unfortunately they met an untimely end because they were playing PUBG Mobile in a train station. They were sitting on the tracks or something, and unfortunately train ran over them. Very, very tragic story over there. But there is this tendency by the media or by certain invested groups to try and paint it differently. I mean, what the hell were they doing sitting on the train tracks? Where was the security, right? You're going to blame the video game for people going to the accident. That's just a very circuitous, very flawed way of looking at things. Yes, addiction is a problem, but let's not blow it out of proportion. There have been instances of kids committing suicide from being not allowed to play games or whatnot, but that is such a tiny, minuscule percentage. There are more kids who kill themselves over exam pressure. Right? No one blames the exam. No one bans exams, though, right? So it's a lot of very unfair accusations being hurled here. Now, I agree this can be a problem, and again, it comes down to open communication, in my opinion. And I think the only example I can really uses my own. Right, growing up, did I want to watch cartoons all the time? I did. I'm sure you did as well. Let's be real. You wanted to watch cartoons all the time, right? And what did our parents do? They're like, okay, you have your time to watch your cartoons. You have a time to play your video games, and you do it at that time. Weekends, they do that, and it can be healthy. I know esports professionals in mainly my main game, which I follow, is in Counter-Strike, and I know professionals who, while earning tens of thousands of dollars a month playing the video game, while playing in some of the best teams in the world, playing for tournaments watched by millions of people, they were also finishing their master's degrees. There are people who are doing their college degrees, people who balance their school life along with the profession in playing video. When I say profession, it's an actual profession. They're working like 7 to 8 hours playing the game as a profession while trying to balance a school life. So I think it's about clean-cut communication, and I think parents need to be more involved with their kids instead of just a sweeping statement. They're like, oh, you can't play, you can't play. No, get to know your kids better. Talk to them, ask them what their games are, be interested in what they do. Maybe then you'll have a healthier understanding of what your kids like or don't like, instead of just preventing them from doing something. Because I think with all our experiences having been kids once your parents are going to tell you not to do something, you're still going to do it. It's not going to change, right? So it's a lot on the parents instead of blaming it as an addiction, because that's an easy way out. That's the parents being lazy. That's them just trying to blame the game instead of them really trying to be a healthy part of the children's life, so to speak. If they do that, I feel a lot of these issues will be taken care of. There will always be outliers. There will always be a few certain edge cases where a kid will be addicted, will have issues, but those are outliers. They will happen. It could be from other effects. It could be that a kid just has an addictive personality, and it just so happens that video game is his drug of choice, right? So I feel we should look at it rationally, and I feel parents should generally be more involved with the kids instead of just, using a broad stroke to paint the picture.
That is, a very interesting perspective, because yeah, it is true that maybe some kids are not really addicted. They just they probably don't have other interests. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, we don't know what the causes are that they would be sitting inside a room for hours. But nevertheless, gaming is seen in a very negative light, whether you like it or not. Broadly, people look at gaming as you have nothing else to do, and you're wasting your time gaming and all of that. So, being a professional in the industry, give me some positives of being part of the video game industry, or playing video games for that matter.
One of the funniest things I see is a lot of people when they find out, when they ask the kids, what are you doing? Like, oh, I'm watching a video game. Like, not playing, I'm watching a stream. I tell them, why are you watching a stream? Go out and play. Says the parent as he sits down and watches a game of cricket. Right? The sheer irony in that is it's funny. It's sad, it's tragic, but it's funny. The positives. For a lot of kids who might suffer from, let's be real, I know a lot of parents might deny, but bullying is a problem in schools. There's a lot of the social dynamics amongst youngsters which goes ignored by adults, generally speaking. And for a lot of them, myself included, a lot of my friends as well, gaming was an outlet. It was a place where we could find other friends, other people who had common interests. Some of my best friends who I've known for close to 20 years right now, I met through gaming, right? So the social dynamics of gaming is something they don't seem to understand. They seem to think that the kids are just sitting there all by the lonesome, just lonely looking at the game. Most of the times, it's about talking to friends, having something in common to do right now, right? Look at what's happening due to COVID. You can't go out and play sports. They can't run around with their friends. At least they can spend some social time with their friends in a virtual environment, talking to each other. I do that even now. I have so many friends like strewn all over the country and the world where I'll be like, hey, want to catch a game? Want to play a game? They'll be like, yeah, cool. And we'll jump into a server, we'll play the game. But playing the game is actually secondary to us actually just talking about everything else under the sun. We're having a conversation while doing something together. The social dynamics of gaming has been completely ignored by, it seems, the mainstream media, by parents and whatnot. I think that's a very important thing. Secondly, you're talking about an industry which is on the cutting edge of technology, of broadcasting, of media, of marketing. You're talking about an industry which is run by the nerds who were kids back in the late 90s, early 20s. These are smart kids. These are smart people, like, who grew up, and now they're like, I don't want to watch sports. I want to watch video games because that's what I grew up with. That's what I still enjoy doing. It's no longer a kid's business. The video game industry made more money. Don't quote me on this. I could be off here by a couple of $1 million here and there, but I believe the video game industry. I think this was an article from 2018, 17. I forget, but it made more money than Hollywood.
Wow.
Let that sink in, right? The video game industry as a whole, it is a tool of entertainment. You have music, you have movies, you have TV shows, you have comic books, you have video games. It's a medium of entertainment, of expression, of media, and that is something people need to accept as a fact. For years, it's just been looked down upon as something where people with no social lives, the typical basement dweller, neckbeard guy sitting in the basement, just playing video games with no social life, with like garbage strewn around. It's an image which has been, I guess, in every parent's minds and everyone's minds for a very long time. But I disagree. It's like, just because you watch TV doesn't mean TV is your life. Just because you listen to music doesn't mean music is completely your life. It's another aspect of your life. And as long as you balance it well, it should be fine, right? It's not stopping kids from going out and exercising and playing and whatnot. It actually helps their social life. Like I pointed out, for a few kids, it's important. I know so many cases of kids who are introverts in real life, who've been bullied, who've struggled to make friends in real life, but who found real good friends and a good community to be with online in video games. And you can't take that away from them, right? That's something really special. Secondly, like I said, it is on the cutting edge, the frontiers of technology, and this can lead to a lot of cool things. It got me interested in computers. I didn't even know what a computer was till I played video games on my console. Then I'm like, wait, I can play video games on this big box over here. I was a kid. I was kind of dumb as well, but I'm like, that's cool. What is this? It's a computer. Cool. And my friends, and then this older cousin of mine, and he was like, oh, you can play online as well. I'm like, what do you mean online? What's that? The internet? That was my introduction to the internet, right? And it got me going. I started to learn and pick up so many really cool things about technology and stuff like that. And all stems from video games and how it pushes the boundaries of everything. Even today, like if you want to buy a really powerful computer, the first thing every reviewer is going to talk about is how well the PC plays video games. It's the same thing. Like growing up as a kid, like us as like 80s and 90s kids, our parents used to look at computers as like, a waste of time. And now they're the ones being forced to use computers where they don't really understand what's going on, right? So, and video games, I feel, are the same thing. It's being painted in the same terms how PCs were back then. And eventually, it's just going to be ubiquitous. It's going to be a part of everyday society, because the kids who are playing video games are adults right now. And eventually, they're going to be parents as well. So it is going to be a slow shift. But yeah, it is facing a lot of resistance right now. A lot of these vague negative terms being thrown around about video games, and I guess it's the job for people like us to kind of like help parents understand it is not how the mainstream media portrays it.
Look, I would like to bring this point up, which is very important, that video games are usually termed violent, right? And the fact is that they are. What are your thoughts on that? Because I have mixed views about it. So
okay.
What is your thought on that?
Okay, let's put it this way, right? There are violent movies.
Correct.
Right? There is violent music. I like heavy metal. I like rock and roll and heavy metal. I grew up with that, and I also know that some of the lyrics and some of the music can be loud and violent. It's an art form. It is an art form in video games. A lot of video games are also an art form of expression for some of these publishers. There are games meant for kids, and again, it comes under the parents. You think video games are violent? Some of them, absolutely. Some of them are very violent. Some of them are games I would not allow my younger cousin to play. So you, as a parent, why are you buying a kid a game which has +18 written on the cover without paying attention? Why aren't the parents doing the due diligence and instead saying a video games are violent, it's affecting my kids? I don't get that. I mean, it's the parents' job not to buy the game for the kids, right? They have ratings. All these games have ratings on top. So the parents' lack of attention to the kids is blamed on the video game industry as a whole. But for someone who is older, +16, 16 and above, or 18 and above, I have the right to play these games. Like I have the right to watch movies which are oriented towards an adult audience, or music for that matter, because I enjoy certain content like that, right? And the entire concept of violence being propagated in real life because of video games, I think that's, pardon my French, but a load of bullshit. I've been playing a lot of violent video games since I was growing up. A lot of my friends played. I have no inclination to be violent in real life. I think there have been incidents where there've been mass shootings and whatnot. And again, it's this fear mongering thing. Video games is the heavy metal of the 80s. So if you go back to the 80s, there was this entire movement of heavy metal is satanic, it is evil, it's corrupting the youth and all that thing, and all those things, where we had bands coming to the court having to explain that the lyrics did not make this guy kill another person. And now video games is a moral panic, so to speak, right? They have to pin it on something else. And if not video games, it's going to be something else. Maybe some other new artist coming out, maybe a movie, maybe a book. We saw books being a problem once upon a time, right? We said certain books are evil. So again, they're always going to pin it on something else. So yeah, it's two things. Firstly, watch what the kids are playing, right? Watch what they think, because you're the ones who have the, who's got a credit card and debit card to buy it for your kids. So watch what they're playing, number one. And number two, the violence thing, I think it's just overblown. I think it's completely overblown.
Right. So I think it all boils down in the end to how you communicate with your kids and what you really, how you really bring them up, like what kind of exposure are they getting? What kind of interest do they have? What kind of books are they reading otherwise?
Yeah.
So definitely that has a big role to play. Now let's come to the schools a little bit. Okay. Now schools are opening up into a lot of vocational training, and I have also seen that some schools do encourage video game programming or video game design as one of the courses or credit courses that these kids are learning. So tell us how the schools can help children who are truly interested in video games to actually make a career, because you're telling me that this is going to be the biggest industry, or it's going to be a part of our life which we cannot eliminate in the future. So what are the opportunities that children have, and what can the schools do?
What can the schools do? That's a good question. I feel, firstly, when it comes to video game design and development, I think it's a good idea to start things off. But I feel to introduce video game design and development early in school, it's too niche. It's like it's too niche to be introduced this early in school, where they need a more broader understanding of programming and related stuff, right? It's like I'm trying to think of a good analogy here, but it's like trying to explain. It's like trying to have a stock market class in school,
right,
for kids who haven't even studied economics 101, right? How the hell are they going to understand what stock markets are if they don't know or cryptocurrency is, if they don't know what economy is, the basics of economy, right? So I feel video game design is a more niche thing, which should be introduced in the college stage of life, as a course in college. But as a whole, generally speaking, I feel like you have sports clubs in schools. You can have an esports club for the kids to gather up and play together, build a healthy social environment. Because if you can have a sports, one for esports, right? There are a lot of kids who prefer that over watching sports, myself included. I don't watch any cricket. I don't watch football. I watch esports. I watch games like Counter-Strike. I watch games like PUBG, and I enjoy it. Some of my favorite teams and players play on that, and that is my sense of entertainment. And I'm sure there are a lot of people out there like that. So why don't you give them that avenue to grow and hone what they want? Schools can also try and have not classes, so to speak, but you can have speakers coming in to talk about the industry, specialized speakers talking about certain aspects of the industry. And yeah, you can have summer courses, you can have smaller courses when it comes to basics of video game design. That could get some kids interested into coding. I got curious about coding because growing up, I wanted to make video games. Simple as that. I didn't wind up making video games, but hey, it led me to be interested in computers and coding, and eventually to take my degree in engineering. So, do these things to open up kids' minds to what's going on. Also, all these kids, let's be real, they all like video games. They all have their mobile phones, they have YouTube accounts, and various games they're interested in. Why not tap into that? Why not make learning a fun experience, something which they would personally enjoy as well? Because let's be real, growing up, at least for me, while I was growing up, whenever you'd have these sort of certain classes and whatnot, it was hard for us to pay attention, right? But if there was something I was interested in, I'm listening. I'm like, I'm gonna have a mouth open, my eyes wide, I want to listen in it. So why not jump onto something which is already a thing with the youth, with the kids out there, and try and use that to pique their interest in similar or like tangential interests, coding, technology, marketing, media, or even esports for that matter. Start a small little esports club. Like what could go wrong here?
Absolutely, that's actually an interesting idea. I don't think anybody, if somebody's watching here, I think that would be a interesting idea for them to start at school. Now, tell me, Sudhen, now when I look at your job that you do, on the surface, it looks like you just need to know two things. One is how to talk, and second thing is your game, right?
Yeah.
But tell us what else, what are the other skills that children need? Maybe life skills, maybe personality. What do they need to actually make it in this business?
So if you're asking about like purely commentary, right?
Commentary, or let's say, give me two things. One is commentary itself, and second thing is any, if I want to play video games, want to join one of your leagues, what are the other personality skills or life skills that I need?
Well, I'm going to touch upon the second one first. If you want to be like a professional video game player, you better be bloody good. You have to be extremely good, because there are people out there who are fantastic, right? But let's talk about that first. I'll touch upon a commentary bit later on. If you want to be a good player, you want to be picked up by a team to be a professional player, getting paid a good salary and everything. Firstly, you need to be a good team player. It's like being in any other sport. You can't be a spoiled brat. You can't be someone who doesn't gel well with the team. You got to have good communication. You got to be a good team player. You got to have fantastic discipline. You got to have mental strength, mental fortitude. Everything a competitive person needs in life, could be in life, could be in sports. You need this in esports, and you need it in spades, because it's a very, very competitive environment. And at the same time, balancing your life, because this can completely overwhelm you, right? And there are times when you realize, you might even come to the realization, I'm not enjoying the game anymore because it's become a job right now. You got to be able to battle that, right? You got to be able to handle that. Because I've felt that a couple of times. I won't lie. I've had burnout where I want to play Counter-Strike, and I'm like, Jesus, I've been talking about Counter-Strike for the past 8 hours straight. Like, I don't want to play the game right now. It's a lot of things. You got to obviously have yourself believe that you can make it. It's the same general advice I would give to someone who wants to be, let's say, a professional cricketer, a professional anything for that matter, to make it in life. It's the same general advice I provide here. It's nothing too special or too crazy that's different. For commentary, which is what I do, I can be a little bit more specific in what would be important. Firstly, you need to have a good grasp of your language of choice, mine being English. It's an ever-learning process, right? Like, I don't think there's anyone who you can say is like the best speaker in any particular language. You keep learning, you keep self-improving, you keep upping your vocabulary, you work on yourself a lot. You need to know the game, not at a surface level, but very, very in depth. You got to do your research. You got to also have very good social skills, because most of the time this job entails, at least when we were able to fly a couple of years back, a year and a half ago, it involves a lot of traveling. It involves a lot of hanging around with a lot of your other colleagues from all over the world. You need to be sociable. You need to be able to handle the crazy, the time zones. You got to have discipline as well, because it's very easy to just kind of let yourself go. You're just flying all the time, hotel to hotel, barely at home. And you kind of forget to take care of yourself. You're not sleeping right. You're not working out. You're not exercising. You're not eating right, and you think your life can just kind of fall apart. Where you might be making money, you might be talking about video games, but you should never forget your personal life as well. So yeah, the core concept, the core thing you need to be good at. Obviously, you need to know how to talk. You need to be very well versed in your language of choice. It doesn't necessarily have to be English. And I think right now in India, a couple of years back, if anyone had said, I want to be a commentator coming in from India, I would have said it's going to be a hard ride. It's really, really hard. But now I think there are a lot of opportunities. I don't think there are enough people who are trying to be commentators, honestly. I think there's a lack of commentators, and there's a surplus of opportunities, because you have people being interested in all these new games like PUBG Mobile, like Free Fire, and all these games. We have newer games coming up, PC games like Valorant, which is really blowing up in popularity in India. And a lot of these tournament organizers which exist in India right now are looking for commentators, not just English ones, but also people who can commentate in Hindi, maybe Gujarati, maybe in Tamil, like in, so some of the more regional channels want these commentators. Not many are there actually. So even if your English is not your forte, even if it's not something you're super comfortable with, if there's a language you're comfortable with, you know the game very well, give it a shot. You have nothing to lose, right? Yeah, that'd just be my like general advice. Obviously, there's way more other things involved as well, but to start things off, I think it's a good time to dive in if you want to. But at the same time, just be very objective about how you're approaching it. Just because you jump in doesn't mean it's a guaranteed profession or a career. You got to weigh your options and see how it pans out. But right now in India, I feel even though it's still very nascent as an industry, even though it's a bit of a wild west at times, I feel it is the perfect time, for a lot of these younger people to jump into the industry.
So now you told us about your, your touring and your jumping from hotel to hotel, and you're not taking care of your personal life or your personal health, whatever. Okay. Now the thing is, when we look at video games, right, we always assume, like you said, this guy sitting in the basement with no life. As a picture that is painted.
I know.
But tell me, what does a day in the life of a video game commentator look like?
Well, right now I work from my bedroom because we're not really traveling outside, but which is kind of unfortunate. I really, really do miss the travel. So I could tell you what I do now, and then I can tell you about like what I do usually when I'm traveling. So right now it's pretty simple, right? I have an event I'm doing this week, which starts at 10 in the morning. It ends at like 3 in the afternoon. It's for 2 weeks, so it's like normal waking hours. I wake up around 8:30. I work out a little bit. I take a quick shower. I wash up, have a cup of coffee, breakfast. Cast to like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Take a quick nap. Then I do the rest of my, the rest of my days online. I work out a little bit more. I try to get some other work done, emails and stuff like that. Adult stuff. Try to clean my place a little bit. Just normal stuff altogether. And then next week, I have an event which starts at I think it starts around 11 p.m. at 12 or midnight, and it's going to end right 8 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
So I have to completely reset my sleep for that event, and immediately post that I have another event which starts at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So it's the time zones can be a little rough, but I try to build my life around it. I have to, right? My sleep pattern is not properly well defined at the moment, but I try to like have some discipline, like some discipline with like working out, going for a walk, reading quite a bit. That's something I really do enjoy. And I just try to do other things as well, which is not necessarily purely video game related. Also, I play video games in the meantime in between as well when I want to. When you're traveling, it's a whole different ball game because you're going to spend about a day traveling. If you're going to travel anywhere outside the country, it's about 1 day just taking out a calendar. You're going to get there. You're going to check in, hotel. You go for rehearsal day at the venue, which is hopefully close to the hotel. It could be farther away as well, depending on the event. You go to the studio, you talk to the producer. It's like a full-fledged show, right? And then you have the day go live. It's usually you turn up like an hour and a half, 2 hours before the event. You got to get a makeup done, do the final rehearsal and everything. Event's done. It's like 10 hours long. You're tired. You go back to the hotel. You don't even feel like working out or even going for a drink. You're just tired. You just go to sleep, right? So all the cities I've been to, I don't think I've ever stepped out to sightsee. It's just been a hotel, airport, back again. But it is fun. You have to deal with the jet lag and everything. And the more busy you are, I know certain commentators who were away for 300 days out of 365. Wow. It's very hard to maintain personal relationships and have kind of like a family setting, so to speak, where you can really do it, to be very real with you, because of how new the industry is right now. The events happening all the time. Hopefully over the next few years, it's going to settle down a little bit. It's going to be more regulated. Not regulated. It's going to be more a more fixed schedule, so you can plan your life around it. Yeah, life while traveling, it's complete madness. But I love it. I absolutely love the madness. And then, I also miss coming back home. But you're home for a couple of weeks, and then the itch comes again. You're like, damn it, I want to fly again. It's fun.
That sounds like a It sounds very glamorous. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm shouting. I'm on a...
Yeah, yeah, it sounds glamorous. It
So,
does, except when when you know had your I think like 100th airport meal. That's when you're like, yeah, I just want to eat home food. But yeah, it's
I'm sure.
fun. It sounds glamorous, but it's a bit of both, right? It is fun. I wouldn't deny it. At the same time, it can be. It depends on who you are, I guess. I know some people who absolutely love it, and some people who are not a fan.
So summing up our talk, and I think we're close to our last question now.
All
Last few
right.
maybe, yeah. So tell me now. I think we've spoken about in quite a bit of detail, but if there's a kid watching this show, and he says, "Okay, I'm going to try. I'm going to give it a shot." He's saying there aren't enough commentators, and I think this is the right time. He said it's the right time. I'm going to jump in.
Mhm.
Give me a step one, step two, step three process of how to go about it.
Okay. Step one would be identify which game you want, right? Identify which game of yours you really want to talk about. Also, be very genuine in understanding, like in recognizing how well you know the game, right? The game knowledge is, excuse me, it's paramount. You need to understand the game to a high level of proficiency to be able to commentate about the professionals playing it, which is why if you look at normal sports, a lot of commentators are ex-professionals who have played the game. It's not necessarily the case, though. There are commentators out there who have not played professionally. It is not a prerequisite. It is good to have those. All right, identify your game. Secondly, gauge yourself as to how good you truly are at talking, at commentary, at telling stories and narrating stuff, your vocabulary and all of those things. Thirdly, you know what? Sometimes imitation is the best form of flattery, right? Pick a commentator who you do like listening to, someone who talks about the same game which you like, someone who is universally recognized as a voice of the game, and try to pick up cues from that, try to learn from him. Don't necessarily have to ape him, but try to learn from commentators like that. Practice on your own, obviously, and always be not too critical, but again, don't rely on other people's opinions, but try to be self-critical and keep like working in yourself, and put yourself out there. No one's going to hire you if you have nothing to show for it, right? No one's going to hire you if you don't have a body of work. You might be like, oh, I'm really good at this, but for a company's going to hire you, they're going to take a risk. They need to know what you've done in the past. They can't allow the product, because your voice is a very important part of the product that's going to be going out involved. There's so many things involved, and your voice is going to be a very important asset in this entire product altogether. So for these organizers to take a risk on you without you having any, is going to be very, very risky for them. So first things first, try to put yourself out there. Try to find games which might not be covered, right? Might not be smaller games, which might not be covered by another caster, or might not be in a tournament. There's so many smaller tournaments out there who don't have comedy. They don't have the budget to hire commentators. You're probably going to have like 4 or 5 viewers. Doesn't matter. That's a great opportunity for you to grow, because even having that one person watching you commentating, it can be extremely nerve-wracking. Trust me, I know. I know how nervous I was when I had my first 3 people watching me cast. I'm like, oh shit, this is really, really painful. And once you get past the barrier, it's a little easier, right? You feel much more comfortable. Rewatch what you did, what you commentated with. Try to find a partner, makes it way more easier. Try to find a partner you can commentate with. You could put yourself out there, say, hey, I'm looking for a potential partner. But first and foremost, work on your own art, your own, whatnot. And then once you feel confident enough that you have a decent body of work where you can show anyone that, hey, I've done this in game, and then you can probably reach out to some TOs. Maybe they can, you can commentate some of their smaller games. Perhaps you start slow, right? Then you're going to be tested, and they're going to try and see how good you are, and you just build on from there. You slowly build yourself up, and you can become a regular fixture in this particular game which you have picked as your home game, so to speak. And from then on, like, there's no one stopping you.
So if I'm trying to get my first job, however small, right? What do I do? Do I make like an audition tape? Do I get my friends to play and then commentate over that? What's my first a profile
Yeah.
building activity?
Okay, so there are you can do that. You can get your friends to play, and not just that. Most games, most video games out there, you can jump into any. We have things called demos where basically once a game is done, it's saved, so you can rewatch that game. Right? It's just the game inside the game itself. So I could find a demo of a professional game that was played earlier, and I can rewatch it without the commentary, and I could commentate on top of that, right? So, and I can record that. There's so many software available out there to record yourself casting, and you can put it on a YouTube channel, maybe unlisted or whatever. You can keep that as a portfolio of the casting you've done. You can also, like I said, firstly, you have to be super active in the community and super active in the industry and know what's going on. You need to know what tournaments are out there, right? You can't just sit there thinking someone's going to come knocking on your door asking, hey, can you commentate for me, when they have no idea who you are. And a lot of people do that, surprisingly. A lot of people do that, which is shocking for me. You got to put yourself out there. So try to reach out to a few TOs. Like, there could be a couple of tournament organizers who you can see that they are doing tournaments, but there are no live streams of the event. Reach out to them, create a YouTube channel, or tell them you'll cast for them on their channel. Maybe be proactive, try and solve problems which might present themselves. And you're going to have to do a lot of work initially, right? You're going to have to do the production. You're going to probably have to do everything all on your own. But almost everyone started out that way. And also it enables you to really understand the intricacies of what really happens in a production. So you're not losing out by doing all these things at the same time. But you have to reach out to some of these tournament organizers, and I don't think they're going to say no, because they anyway don't have a stream going on. They have nothing to lose out. Sure, you might not get paid. They don't have the budget for it, but you get some experience under your belt, right? And you can use that stream, the live streams, which are usually recorded and saved on YouTube or on Twitch, and you can showcase that to a bigger TO down the line, and you can use that to to pitch your particular skill set, so to speak.
Okay, so see, what I'm trying to do right now is do a sort of,
Yeah, sorry, I could hear some like hammering in the background.
Is that behind
I
you?
think it's my neighbors. Of course, they're gonna start hammering at this time.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So that's all right. So the idea is to make like video game commentating for dummies sort of thing. Okay, so that's why I'm going to ask you these very, very basic questions. So if I want to get started, what is the kind of setup that I need at home, or what do I need technology wise?
You would need a PC. The better the PC, obviously it's better for you, but you don't need like a big machine which costs a lot of money. A basic PC should suffice. A good microphone would be really, really helpful, and because I have a really good microphone, it's picking up everything. You can clearly hear the hammering as well. You need a good microphone that is paramount, right? If you're going to be using your voice as your main tool set, you need something to really portray it the right way, the way it really sounds for everyone. So a good microphone, it will be a bit of an investment, but you can start at like $3,000 to $4,000. I think you're going to get a pretty decent one. You can go all the way to like 50 to 60,000 rupees for a good setup altogether. But you can get one for very reasonable rates. You can get some in between, like mine costs around 13 to 14,000 rupees. It's not too much. It's not the super high end one. Neither is it like super low end, but you can find a lot in between, right? And if this is going to be your way of working, I think it's important to invest a little bit in the future. So yeah, a computer, even a laptop will suffice at times just to like commentate, and a webcam, it would be ideal. All right, just you don't have to go for a high-end high-end camera, but a decent webcam. Most laptops come with it. You need a microphone's obviously paramount. A decent set of headphones, and a couple of lights. Some of the cheap, the circle, those ring lights, which you get for like $500. I think that should be good enough, and you're good to go. I don't think anything should stop you. I was commentating on like headphones which cost like $500 or something. It was terrible. It was really terrible at one point in time. But I realized if I was gonna try and make a career out of this, I need to invest in myself to really help my life be way more easier. And especially with the COVID thing happening right now, I'm really glad I made an investment in a decent microphone a couple of years back. All
right, so as every interview ends, give us your word of advice for somebody who wants to be in this industry.
Um, Not much. I would just say be realistic about things. Don't be, just blown away by the glitz and glamour, right? Obviously, if you have a dream to be the next superstar, making millions of dollars and being super famous, more power to you. Good for you. But you also have to be realistic that it is not for everyone, right? It's sometimes it's luck of the draw, unfortunately. Popularity contests and all of that. You can be a professional video game player, but are you good enough? Like, it's good to be confident. It's good to be confident that you are good enough, but it's not necessarily always going to be the case. Sometimes just doesn't work out. So pursue your dreams, be realistic about it, have a backup plan. Do not ever ignore your schooling or your college for that matter. I think it's very important to have a good balance between both, not just for your mental health, but also for your career as a whole, right? You want to always have that safety net. And for the side of for the parents, I would also say, try and just talk to your kids. Simple as that. You don't have to wheel a stick or a belt or just paint everything in one shade. Video games bad or video games lead to violent tendencies. No, it's not. You just need to talk to your kids, be communicative, have an open mind. And I think it's going to be a really cool time the next few years when it comes to this industry in the country. I feel we're going to be seeing a lot of growth, and I feel we're going to be eventually seeing a lot of mainstream acceptance. Like this thing I see in India right now, where video games are looked down as the devil or evil or bad. It's the same thing which we used to see a few years ago back in Europe, in North America, and now you have. I mean, if you look at the organizations who are involved, like the Dallas Cowboys, the NFL org, they bought into esports. You have huge investors, sports people, people who own teams in the NBA who are buying into esports companies. You have in South Korea, this is more popular than football. That's how massive it is, right? In China, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry with the government being involved as well. In Europe, there are schools which, in Denmark, for example, Counter-Strike is a game, is a part of the school curriculum. It is a subject taken, and it is not just one school, it's all the schools, right? The sponsors, the best team from Denmark is sponsored by Audi, by Jack and Jones. Like, it is as mainstream as it can get. And there are summer camps for kids to play video games and stuff like that. And they face the same backlash 10 to 15 years ago, which is happening in India right now. We're just catching up, and we will catch up. It's just going through some of these early growing pains, and it'll be fine.
I hope so. I mean, I think it's going in the right direction,
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I think we're done. That's a wrap. And it was lovely, lovely, lovely talking to you.
Likewise.
Yes. And I hope the kids learn something valuable from here.
Hopefully. So, yeah. Don't sit in a basement. That's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you so much.